The Supreme Court began its new term this week, just a few months after the High Court affirmed same-sex marriage and upheld Obamacare. Those liberal-leaning decisions didn't come quietly, and we can anticipate more fireworks from the nation's highest court during this new term, too. The court is expected to tackle a number of hot topics: the ACA's contraception mandate, public employee union fees, and affirmative action admissions at universities. And for a preview of what's to come, we're going to bring in Chris Geidner, legal editor at BuzzFeed. Chris, thanks very much for coming in.
Morning, Jonathan.
So our Pete Williams says we could expect some big victories for the court's conservatives this time around. Do you agree with that? What's on the docket?
Well, as we learned last term, as the year goes on, the term gets more and more interesting. Like last year, when the term started in October, we didn't yet have the Obamacare case or the marriage case, and this year we have a similar situation where we expect that we're going to get another Obamacare case relating to, they already heard the case about whether or not for-profit companies how they had to handle the contraception mandate. Now there's cases going up about how nonprofit companies, which already have an exception to the contraception mandate, whether the exception even is too much of a burden on their religious interests. And then there's also these questions coming out of Texas and out of Mississippi about abortion restrictions, and sort of the vein of these abortion restrictions are restrictions on abortion providers. And so both of those cases, the court hasn't said which of several different cases in both of those areas that they're going to take, but most of us expect that they're going to end up taking at least one case in both of those areas.
Any ideas to what the court might do on the issue of affirmative action?
Well, no, we don't know. I mean, what happened? The case, it's still this Abigail Fisher's case out of the University of Texas, Austin, that the court heard a few years ago. And what they said then was that the appeals court basically didn't analyze the issues closely enough and didn't apply the standard properly when examining what UT's motives were and what their interests were for the program. Now that case, the Fifth Circuit reviewed the case again and again upheld UT's affirmative action policy, and Abigail Fisher brought the case back to the court, and the court this spring said, yeah, we're going to take it again. So that obviously has people in support of the affirmative action policy pretty concerned about whether the court's going to either limit affirmative action policies further in higher education or potentially get rid of them altogether.
And over the past several years, we've seen fewer and fewer cases being heard by the Supreme Court, meaning that the Court of Appeals around the country and the different circuits are having the final say on a lot of very serious issues. So are we seeing a continuation of this? We're only going to hear the broadest issues and the broadest cases and not get into technical fixes that we're just going to leave more and more at the different circuits around the country?
I think when you look through the docket, you see that there's ERISA cases about tax law. There's cases that have to do with how specific statutes are going to be applied. There's a case relating to Iran and banking in Iran. There are lots of cases that go into the nitty-gritty of specific details, but overall, yeah, the court's docket, as it gets smaller and smaller, there are just fewer issues that are able to be resolved by the Supreme Court.
And Chris, we're going to have to leave it there, but I have to give you mad props on your tie, like your tie. Chris Geidner of BuzzFeed, thank you very much for being here.